Hello everybody and welcome back to yet another episode of Turning Tuesday. In this video we are going to make a little mallet out of two random bits of timber I picked up from Surrey Timbers the other day. Ceccato Preto, which sounds like a dish that you'd order from an Italian menu, and tamboti. We're going to make a mallet. Let's get going. Now this little thing has been with me for years. I've grown very attached to it. I moulded it to fit my hand perfectly and it has served me very well. I've had so many questions about it over the years, a lot of complaints asking why are you using that disgusting looking thing. I love it. The size is perfect, there's a lot of punch behind it, but it is a little worse for wear. I'll just sort of walk you through the design of it. So the head on this is lignum vitae, which is an extremely hard and extremely dense and oily wood, and it is perfect for mallets. It's actually two parts joined together because there wasn't enough thickness on the piece that I got. But the problem with lignum vitae is it is incredibly oily, so it doesn't lend itself very well to gluing. So because I made this in the early days of my woodworking, I attempted a dowel joint to link them up. I got the dowels through that side. They didn't line up very well on the far side, so I kind of just got some holes there. But I have been whacking this thing for years and it has stuck together, so there's some sort of strength in it. And the handle is simply made of ash, and as I said at the start, I've got 4 little indents there that fit my fingers lovely, and then there's a little thumb bit here that just, yeah, it fits so well. I spent far too long perfecting that. And the head is simply attached to the handle through a hole that I drilled in the head of it, and then I just shaped a tenon on the end of the handle to fit into it with a screw driven through the end, and that screw is massive, I believe. A few notable things about this. The two heads on it are slightly different. This one is it convex? I always get these mixed up. This head is ever so slightly convex. So if you're assembling components, main one being dovetails, which is what I use this mallet for mostly, if you're assembling them, that prevents any corners from hitting the material and denting it. This end is concave, which means that when you're hitting things like chisels, it's less likely to deflect off the end. The only issue with this design being that it fits my hand beautifully this way when I've got the convex head on it, assembling things. But when you try and hit things with a chisel, it's all backwards because the finger holes are now here and the thumb hole is here. It doesn't work, it's a stupid design. Oh wait, I've just realized you can spin the handle. Oh. It's taken me years to realize that. I'm replacing it anyway. This looks disgusting now. So this Ceccato Preto is going to be the head of the mallet because I kind of want to keep the look of this, the dark head on it with a kind of lighter handle. And yeah, obviously the tamboti is going to be the handle. There is enough for 2 mallets here, so I am going to make 2 of them so I can do some akimbo malleting for whatever reason. Yeah, let's cut these in half. The end grain on this Ceccato Preto, it looks absolutely insane. I'm not entirely sure what colour it's actually going to end up as. I feel like it's going to be that colour when I turn it, but then over time it's going to start turning brown, much like lignum vitae. This stuff starts green and then as it ages it turns black. I reckon this will do the same thing. That'll be cool. So the first thing I need to do on these blocks, or on the heads, is drill the mortise for the handle to fit into. And on this I want to do a through tenon, so you actually see the end grain of the handle poking through the top. So whichever side I drill into here will dictate where the grain is going, or how it looks from the side. So on this it's kind of going up diagonally. So when I look at it, I see straight grain rather than the crown cut patterns there. So I am going to pay attention to that. I want to see, I reckon if I drill through that side, then we'll work out what size drill bit I want to make for the mortise. I think on the older one it was somewhere like 25, is that a 25? That's a 30. Yeah, that'll do. The size of the through tenon through there. Oh, actually that's quite big, isn't it? but it will need to be big because it's going to be subject to a lot of whacking. So maybe that would be better. Because with regards to this mallet, I do, although it's going to be pretty much the same proportions, I think the size, I am going to try and get more material out of this block in order to make a larger head for it. There's a lot of punch behind this, but it could be a little bit better. Yes, I'll lose the lovely compact size of this, but yeah, we'll go with it. So this drill bit isn't quite, well, it will get through it, but it's going to be clamping on the very end of that shank. So I'm going to get as far as I can in the pillar drill and then just take it out and finish it by hand with the chuck, just grabbing the very end of this Forstner block. I've just had a thought that when I turn this down into a cylinder, that 30mm hole is going to be a lot bigger than it appears now. So I'm going to keep this one at 30mm and then I'll do the next one probably at 25. And then if you guys try this project, you'll know which one looks best at the end of it. Little disclaimer there, as you're drilling larger diameter holes with a hand drill like this, just be aware that if that grabs, it has the potential to break your wrist. Either brace the drill against you while you do it so that it can't spin around, or get a drill with kickback control on it. So as you're holding the trigger, if it catches, it just stops. Right, now to actually mount stuff on the lathe. So just get a small indent from the live center. I completely missed my center mark there. There we go. One mark for the prong drive. I'm not going for anything deep here because I obviously don't want to ruin these faces too much. And there is not a chance it's going into the end grain of that. Right, we are in business. So let's get this rounded down to a cylinder. I'm literally just going to make up the size as I go along and just see how it turns out and what I think of it. Right, so I've got it down to the kind of diameter that I want and I've sanded it up to 240 grit. Not going to take it much higher than that because I'm going to finish it off by sanding with the grain after it is all assembled. Quick note on this, if you're ever doing something like this, it has occurred to me that there is a lot of danger in this by having that hole drilled through the center. If you're turning, it's a common thing that I do and I've seen other people do where as they're turning they'll just sort of feel their progress. You know, feel how smooth it is, it's spinning while you're doing it, and usually if the thing's round then it's pretty safe to do. But with this thing, as you got that hole spinning round, if your finger goes into that, then it's, you know, it's trapped between the tool rest and the workpiece, and yeah, that wouldn't be too nice. So when I was turning it, I made sure to turn it off every time just to check my progress instead of feeling it while it was spinning. And also when I was sanding, I used a block because I didn't want a chance of, if I was sanding it underneath, there probably wouldn't be a chance of my finger going into the hole. But just as a precaution, I used a block underneath and kept my fingers well clear of that spinning hole. So now I'm going to take it off, mount one end in the chuck, and I'm going to work out, in fact I could work out the size of it now to be honest, let's do that. So if that's the centre of the hole there, the size of my current mallet is that, I'm going to make it a tad bigger than that I think, probably by about 5mm. So this thing is going to be 90mm across its head. Okay, and then I'm going to part that off and we'll probably make this the concave face, I think. Good, right, so we have got the concave face. It only dips back about maybe 1 or 2mm, 2mm at most. There's hardly anything in there, but it is slightly concave. So I'll give that a little sand and then we'll move on to the other head. So to do the other end on this, I had originally planned to just kind of flip it round in the gripper jaws, and you know, there might be some marks on that end there, but I could probably just sand them out, or I don't know. It's definitely not the way to do it. There's certainly a more sensible method of doing it somewhere. I could part it here on the other side, which would mean there's no marks left on this side, but then cleaning up that opposite face will be quite difficult. But I think I am going to go for that method because I'm at this stage. I'm going to part it off there, and then I'm going to flip it round and put this end in the gripper jaws. But because this would have been fully parted off, I won't need to put too much pressure on these jaws when clamping that end, because at the end of the day, it's been parted off. The only thing I've got to do is put that convex face on it, which can be done with the scraper. I could, in fact, even put some leather around this to prevent damage to it. I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to see what it's like parting this close to the chuck. I have got the jaws poking out here, so I'm going to do it all from this side rather than like that, obviously. So it'll all be like that, part it off for at least most of the way, and then cut it off by hand, yeah, that's what we're going to do. In fact, I reckon I can probably do about 70% of the shaping with this parting tool, going in at a slight angle and making that convex face, kind of using the corner of this to scrape it, and then it'll only take a little bit of cleaning up afterwards once it's been flipped round. You know, I'm not going to cut this off by hand actually, I'm going to try and fully part it off. Obviously I'm not going to grab it because I've got that hole in it, but I'm going to try and make a little cradle underneath for this to be caught into so that I don't have to get my hands anywhere near. It should just fall into it nicely. Just need to find some lovely soft material. There you go. Some old leather, well, fake leather. If you ever see some old leather sofas sat around that have just been fly tipped at the end of the street, go over there with a Stanley knife one day, preferably not when the authorities are around, and just slice it up because it is so useful to just have all this stuff lying around. So I've just got to make sure that I don't go any more than one wrap around this so that this thing stays as central as possible. I've got a little bit of an overlap on it there, but if I put that between the jaws, I don't think that will affect it too much. Cool. Yeah, it's a little bit off, but we can go with that. Actually, no. I'll say that'll be all right, actually. Let's just double check how secure it is before I go ahead with this. Yeah, that can't come out, surely. I'm only going to be scraping the end grain here, so it should be all right. Okay, so I've been looking at the, keep forgetting the name, Tamboti, and I think I might have accidentally cut it a bit too short because I forgot to account for the fact that I've made the head on this a little bit bigger. It would have worked if the mallet was this size, but because the head is bigger, there's not going to be a lot of room for my hand at the bottom. Like, it will work, but it will look very, I'm not sure it's going to look quite right, to be honest. So what I'm going to do, I've got a little bit of ash here, which exactly the same material that I used for this one, and ash makes incredibly good tool handles anyway because it's slightly more shockproof and a better resistance to splitting. So I'm going to have a go with that and get that fitted into the head. If it looks good, awesome, I'll keep it. But the other nice thing is it will kind of act as a mock-up. So if that handle ends up being a little bit small, and in fact I could actually use this material, then I don't know, I'll see how this looks, but I have a chance of just being able to pull that out and make another handle out of this. We'll see. But I have just realised that this is the last offcut from my Rubo workbench, I believe. Right, we have got it round, so I am going to turn the tenon fit into the head up this end. I want to give a little bit of room for the jaws to grip without it being in the area that's at the top of the mortise. So it's going to grip there, and then the actual head will start beyond that point, so it will finish there. That is the size of the tenon that I'm going to need, and the rest of this I've got loads of room to play with different lengths, and that's it. So I'll set some calipers to that internal dimension there, lock it down, and then these are going to be my friends while turning that tenon to fit into the hole. Okay, so I've just been turning this top bit into the tenon, and I've just realised that the tenon should be there, but this serves as good practice at least. I am almost there, just needs a little bit more work on it. I'll start moving on to the actual bit that I need to turn into a tenon now. looks like we're pretty much there. It's going to be very, very snug, I think. Let's give it a go. Might have to take a bit more off. I could get that in there, but it's not coming out if I do. He says while pushing it in more. A little more off in there. Should do it. That's better. Oh, blimey. Or is it? Yes. Just needs a bit of twisting. Okay, maybe a bit more. We are through. Yes. I mean, I would be inclined to say that's a good fit. A squeaky fit. So now again, it just comes down to working out where to actually cut this off. So my hand goes there. One thing I really liked about this mallet is, again, its compact size. But you get a little bit more power from a mallet the further down the handle you hold it, because it's got more of a swing behind it. And it means you can hold it looser as well, because you're not having to hold it right up here, whacking it in. It's just sort of nice swinging actions. So actually, maybe, although I do really like the compact size, maybe it would be beneficial to make it just a tad longer. And I've just had a thought, I could just mount it on the lathe like that, couldn't I? I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to go for like a teardrop pattern kind of thing on this handle so that it can be held with whichever hand you want, and it can also work with both sides of the mallet. You know, quite similar to my old mallet, apparently. The teardrop pattern, I think I'm going to be doing most of this with the old spindle gouge. That'll be nice for doing the long sweeps, and then probably the round nose scraper, because I'm loving that tool at the moment. Cool, I think I've got a quite nice shape going on there. I quite like that. So I'm going to swap the prong drive to a chuck. I'm going to part this down a little bit more and then remove the live center and start tidying up the end of this. Right, so I've got quite a lot of wobble when I remove the live center. So I kind of want to part this off with the live center in place, but obviously I can't do that because that's what I did with the box in the previous episode, and it went terribly. But I'm wondering if I turn this block here down to a much thinner point and basically make it so there's 2 points on that large prong that can break, that way this won't get stuck and it should be able to break freely quite easily. This is not something I'm recommending doing. I'm just going to try it for my own experimentation. Damn it! I hate the skew! Right, tidy up time. Oh, God, that is a big one as well. Right, I think we are there, so let's get this all out the chuck and assembled into a mallet and see what it actually looks like. Ooh, I like that. I actually quite like the tenon protruding out the top as well. Yeah, that's very cool. Right, so I got myself some pen jaws the other day, and I'm going to use this to part off the end of it here and then also put a nice little chamfer on it as well, so everything is on the same axis. You know, I could just cut that tenon off and then just stick that through the head and be done with it, but I want it to look nice. The reason I couldn't do this in the gripper jaws is because I was clamping it in the lower section here, and as you can see, the upper section will block off where I need to part it. Whereas the pen jaws, I should be able to just get enough grip on it, or at least I'm hoping, to just do that last part, put a nice little chamfer on it, and then it'll be done. Oh yeah, that's not going anywhere, surely. So I'll put the leather underneath again to catch it, just in case it comes off. Move this out of the way. That looks pretty awesome. Feels good. So we're going to put some glue in it and then chuck a finish on it and we'll see what it looks like. Well, that's not good. The tenon has got very tight now that it's got glue on it, but the key to moments like this is staying nice and calm. Get the big boys on it then. Sorry, Mr. Mallet, but you are going in. Yes, there we go. I really shouldn't be moving the camera around in a situation like this, but content is more important than the result, am I right? So what I'm doing here is I'm leaving a little gap for the tenon to protrude through, and then we've got the 2 blocks on the bottom, which you're going to push on the bottom of the handle. And as long as I do those up evenly, there we go, starting to go through, we'll stop it there. That'll do. So to finish this, I'm going to put boiled linseed oil on it. Linseed oil is the standard finish for most mallets, really. So at the end of the day, there's no point doing a finish that's super high gloss, super fine and like beautifully mirror finish all over, because it's a mallet. It's going to get whacked and destroyed over time, and boiled linseed or just oil in general will soak in and just protect a mallet a little bit more than a finish that just sits on top wood. Right, and there we go. There is the completed mallet. Very, very happy with that. Definitely keeping the ash handle because it's in keeping with this thing that has served me well for 6 or 7 years. It's had a lot of beating and I'm very sad to see it go. I'm going to be putting it in the cabinets up here. I'm not throwing it away. It's nice to kind of have an upgrade, a new pristine version that's actually been made well, because this thing, I didn't have any access to a lathe when I made it. It was just planed round and shaped by hand, and you know, it's cool to see the progression from where I have come to what I can do now. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. If you've got any suggestions on things you'd like to see me do next, chuck them in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.